everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Today I want to talk about time. I want to talk about how you spend your time and how generally we all spend our time. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I've done an episode before about I just don't have time for that. And so if you haven't listened to that, please go listen to it because it was for me, it was something, just a mindset shift of how I manage my time and how I feel about time and the control that I have over it. And that was a big game changer for me. And I had some people that reached out after I made that episode who just kind of felt the same way I did, and it helped them have a mindset shift to it. So if you haven't listened to it, please go do. I don't remember what episode that is. It's one of the first 5 or 6, I think, that I did. So go find that one if you'd like to listen to it. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because I find that I have this kind of conversation with a lot of people, not just the feeling of not having time, but the way that we manage our time leads in a lot of ways to how we feel about ourselves, because what a lot of people will do is not realize how much time they're spending on certain things, and then that time passes, because don't we all say that, like, time flies, there's just time's passing by so quickly. That's something that most people say because it's true. Life is filled with things that keep us on the go, and we've got a lot going on all the time, and so time does pass quickly. But it's more than time. It's experiences. It's the people in our lives grow and change, and our kids are just growing up so quickly. And so there's this feeling that a lot of people have, which is that time flew by. I didn't have time to do the things I needed to do, or I didn't make time to do the things I needed to do. And what happens to a lot of people is they then have a follow-up feeling of some kind of guilt or regret. And this is a really, really common thing that I deal with. So I want you to think about it in kind of 2 ways at once. I want you to be thinking of it in a kind of zoomed in scope where you're thinking about the specific ways that you spend your time throughout your day. And then I want you to also think about it in a zoomed out scope where the big picture of your life and the overall kind of larger passage of time, days, months, years. And it'll make more sense when I explain it, but just kind of try to think of it in little picture, big picture at the same time. It'll come to you as I talk. So in the little picture, I want you to think about the day-to-day tasks, how long it takes, what time do you wake up? Are you a snoozer, or are you a quick riser? Are you an early riser or a late sleeper? And do you wake up because you have somewhere that you need to get ready and go to, or do you kind of take your time because you're working from home or your kids are off for the summer and you don't really have anywhere to go? Think of your routine in the morning, how you start your day. And the reason that I start there is because that's the start to how we function for that day, right? If you have a hard start to your day and the way that you spend your morning is not optimal, or you just feel frustrated, or things just didn't go right, or something came up that threw your schedule off, well, that potentially could set the pace for your entire day. It could just completely throw you off, put you in a bad mood, or maybe just change the direction of the way your day was supposed to go. You may have planned to do one thing, but because of what happened in the morning, you can't do that, or you missed, you're late or whatever. And so I think that a lot of people are in this autopilot mode where, you get up and you just do what you need to do, and whatever the day throws at you is what you do. And then there are a lot of people who are very structured and have a routine, and they wake up and they follow their routine and they do the things that they need to do because that keeps them on track to achieve a certain thing. And that's how I function. I'm a very routine kind of person. I'm regimented. It helps me manage all the things that I need to do, getting myself ready, helping my son get ready, getting us, whether it's school or camp in the summer, work, the dogs, like everyone's got a role, everyone's got somewhere to be. And for me, I function better with some kind of system like that. But then there are some people who cannot do that because it stresses them out to have a routine and a plan. But for the most part, I find with the people I talk to, whether it's personal people in my life or clients, more often than not, people are more successful if there is a plan and if there is a routine. And I end up spending a lot of time helping people develop these systems and these routines because not everyone knows how to do that. Some people are naturally structured and organized, and that's just how their brain works. And then there are some people who that just does not come naturally to them. They can't do it. They need support. They need someone to help them create it. And then for some people, even after the system is created, they need someone to hold them accountable, to help them stay on track, to help them implement it because they're easily distracted or they're easily overwhelmed. And so if something goes off schedule, then everything else is off schedule. And so, I wonder which one you are. Do you fall into one of those two categories, or are you somewhere in the middle, or maybe there's a different category that you fall under? But typically speaking, structure and organization leads to more success in pretty much every part of life. Obviously, you can't be too rigid in anything because life is not that black and white. Life throws things at you on a very regular basis, and you have to be able to roll with the punches. You have to be able to adjust and just go with it. But if you have an outline that you try to follow, you're going to be more successful. And that's just because most things in life do end up following some kind of direction. If you have to go to school, or you have to take your kids to school, or if you have to go to work, then there's probably a schedule. There's probably a time that you have to be there. And if you don't arrive by a certain time, you're considered late. So that is essentially the boundary. Everything that you do before that sets you up so that you can successfully get to that boundary, so you can get to that time. And if you have a certain number of things that have to get done, you have to take a shower, get dressed, feed yourself, feed your children, get to the, drive the distance that takes a drive. Well, you probably have to have some kind of time structure there that helps you make sure that all of that is done by a certain time to be able to leave and get to your place on time. So, but you'll be surprised how many people struggle to work backwards from that boundary, from that time, and create a system or a kind of a plan that leaves enough time for everything to happen. And some people don't do it because they just have never been taught that. It wasn't something they were raised with, and they're not really, they weren't taught the value of organization. And some people, like I said, they just don't know how, or they're overwhelmed easily because their kids are, struggling themselves, and it's just, you're in survival mode. And so I want you to think about how your morning is. How does your day start? And is there room for growth? Do you need to change the way that you manage your time and getting yourself ready and getting to where you need to be? And I want you then to think about, and this is the main part of what I want to talk about, is the emotional effect, the mental health effect, right? So for most people who, let's say we've got that time boundary, got to get to work on time, or get to school on time, wherever. For most people who don't hit that mark, there is a consequence, right? There's a consequence from school or work, but more relevant to what we're talking about, there's an emotional consequence. There's a feeling of guilt or regret or remorse, but that guilt, or any of it really, but guilt specifically, is such a strong emotion that is very directly linked to self-worth, self-esteem. So if I have a responsibility and I need to get my kid to school at a certain time and I don't get him to school, well, it's not my kid's fault for being late. It's my fault ultimately. Even if my kid threw a tantrum, yeah, but I don't walk around advertising, hey, I'm late because my kid freaked out. No, I'm late. We're late. It is what it is. No one's business as to why. But if I'm walking into school with a kid late, taking the walk of shame through the office because we missed the carpool line, well, that is a reflection on me. And most people who care about what other people think would internalize that as, oh my gosh, they're judging me. They think I'm a bad mom. I can't even get my kid to school on time. They think I don't have it together. Look at me. I'm a mess. My hair is messed up. I'm in pajamas. Like, they think that I'm a terrible mom. And people may not even notice or care because you're probably one of many people that walked in late that day and no one cares how you look. But we have a tendency, people in general have a tendency to internalize those things, assume what other people are thinking about us. And we typically, if you are someone who struggles with any kind of self-esteem issues, we assume the worst. We assume that someone is judging us because of a thing that we did or a thing that we didn't do up to a certain standard. And I want you to think about that. So that's the little day-to-day thing. It's a day-to-day example. But again, you can probably apply this to also bigger examples that are, how do you think people see you as a parent? How do you think people see you as a husband or a wife or as an employee in your job? There's this expectation that that sometimes is externally set by other people. Hey, you have to do this a certain way by a certain time. And then we have our own expectations, how I want to appear while I do it. What do I want people to think of me as I do this thing? And so simultaneously, we've got these little things that happen day to day, and we've got these big things that happen in our lives where we kind of we measure ourselves up against what are people expecting, how do people see us. But so that's one aspect of it. But again, going back to how you manage your time, that really is kind of the first step to wondering, how do people see us? Do we do things the way that people expect us to do it, or are we doing it differently where we worry we're being judged? And I want you to think about that for yourself. Are you the kind of person that worries so much about other people's perspective of you that you then have this kind of this measuring tape, I guess, that you're using to measure your own parenting or role in whatever it is in your life, and then you end up more focused on what other people think of you than of yourself? Or are you the kind of person that your internal measure of yourself, like who cares what other people are doing and how they're doing it, but you expect that you need to be a certain way because that's how you were raised, or that's just the expectation you have of yourself, so the guilt or the remorse that you feel for not living up to something is coming from yourself. Because I know people who are super hard on themselves, and then every other member of their family is super laid back, so it wasn't a thing that they were raised with. Like all of their siblings or parents may be very easygoing, but this particular person is super tough on themselves, high expectations, perfectionist. So that's more of maybe an inherent trait, something that you just, you developed it on your own, or you were born with it, or whatever. And so I kind of want you to think about that. Do you feel that, remorse or guilt because you are holding yourself up to a standard outside of yourself, or do you feel it because you're holding yourself up to a standard within yourself? But regardless, when you have expectations and you don't live up to it, it then often leads to this negative mental health effect, this negative emotional effect on your self-esteem, on your self-worth. So we talked about kind of the morning routine that can set your day up a certain way. But then moving on from there, you've got the rest of your day, right? You've got how efficient are you in your job? How efficient are you at school? How efficient are you at home taking care of your kids? Whatever it is that you spend your day doing or working on, what is the kind of the set of guidelines that you follow or that you hold yourself up against? Is it something that you feel you need to accomplish throughout your day because someone else is expecting you to do it? Or is it because if you don't do it, then you're a bad parent or you're a bad worker? And so I want you to think about that. Again, big picture, little picture. Is it, in day-to-day and in general life, do you walk through your day feeling like you have to achieve these things, but you're not super efficient at achieving them? Therefore, at the end of the day or at the end of that hour, you feel so bad about yourself. You feel like you didn't get anything done, nothing was checked off the to-do list, or not enough was checked off the to-do list. So now you feel this kind of yucky feeling of dissatisfaction with yourself, worried that other people are disappointed in you because you didn't live up to the standard, all of that. But It's amazing how many people I work with and that I know, again, personally and professionally, who operate on a somewhat regular basis or maybe all the time on this constant feeling of I'm just not living up to the expectation. I'm just not hitting that mark. I'm not getting places on time. I'm not doing what I need to do. And so it leads people to feel on a regular basis just not good enough, just like they're not doing it as well as other people, or they clearly aren't as good as, they thought they would be at this point, or as their parents or whatever. And so I kind of want you to, maybe you have to start from one way and move on to the up to the next, or maybe work backwards. But if so one way is, I don't do these things, therefore I feel guilty. So let me figure out how to fix this, how to be more efficient, how to manage my time, how to be more organized while also cutting myself some slack, because nothing is perfect and even the best plan can go wrong. So how do I do all these things to eliminate that feeling of guilt or beating myself up emotionally? So that's one way to do it. The other way is working backwards, is to say, okay, I keep noticing that I feel this yucky guilt, and I'm always feeling bad. I'm always feeling like I'm not good enough. So let me figure out where that's coming from. What is that? Is it because of something I need to do differently, or is there a deeper issue? Is there something else going on? Is there a relationship in my life maybe that's causing me stress? Is there something I'm doing in my life that I don't enjoy, and so I always feel bad? And so now I need to kind of work backwards and figure out, okay, what is it? And so some people are very self-aware and they know what causes their stress and their guilt, and other people don't. And so what category do you fall in? Do you know why you feel like crap at the end of the day and that you just didn't do enough? Or do you not? And if you don't know, this is a good exercise. Try kind of keeping track throughout your day. What are the things that you do that make you feel good about yourself? What are the things that you do that leave you feeling a little bad, whether it's, sad, mad, disappointed, discouraged, alone, whatever. And so kind of inventorying a little bit. And then if you could always talk it out with someone that from the outside might know you better and, notice things about you and help you out. Or if you do know that stuff about yourself, then what do you do about it? Do you continue to do it and basically live out the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. So if you feel guilty at the end of every day because you didn't do enough, either your expectations are too high and you have way too many things that you think you should be doing at the end of every day and you just can't accomplish it because it's unrealistic, or you have things you want to do but you have zero system for implementing it, and so you're just kind of floating through your day, and before you know it, that time has flown by. You've run out of hours in the day and the day's over and you feel bad about yourself. So I want you to think about how you need to approach this. What do you need to do to make sure that you are taking care of yourself? And this is one of those, like there's lots of things in life that negatively contribute to, self-esteem, mental health in general, anxiety, depression, all of that. And there are some things that we cannot control. We can't control certain things that happen in the world outside of us. We can't control death and weather and loss. Like we can't do anything about tragedies that happen, accidents that happen. But there are certain things that we can do something about to manage anxiety or prevent it altogether. This is one of those things. And every person that I've worked with on something like this, once they find a system that works for them and they implement it, there's drastic changes and drastic reduction in anxiety, in guilt, but it has to come with realistic goals and realistic expectations. Again, you can come up with the best plan to help you be efficient, to help you get through your day and avoid that guilt, but life happens and you cannot predict everything that's going to happen in your day. So it's best to figure out a system. First, figure out what are the things that you wish you could accomplish, then break it down into manageable parts and time blocks, or scheduling and alarms and reminders and whatever, stuff you need to use. But then it's reminding yourself, okay, this is the goal, this is the outline. But if something happens that derails me, I'll do my best to get back on track. But if I cannot accomplish all this stuff, that's okay. Like, I have no choice. I'm going to have to figure it out. And don't be the kind of person that if you get derailed, you quit on the entire system, or you throw your hands up and declare that you're just a loser and it's never going to accomplish these things. Like, none of that is true. You have to figure out a system that works best for you. Do not compare your system to someone else's system. Don't assume that just because this family member or friend does it a certain way that it should automatically work for you. And if it doesn't work, that means something's wrong with you. No, none of that is true. You have to figure out what works for you. But again, this is a conversation that you could have with anyone about being organized and structured and whatever. But I'm looking at it more from the sense of, what is it that you do or don't do in your day that then leads to guilt, low self-worth, low self-esteem, regret, anxiety, sadness, whatever. So you have to figure out, because if you have a good system, don't change it. But if you know that there are things that you do that lead to negative emotions or negative reactions, that's the stuff I want you to think about. I want you to think about what you need to do to take more control over your day. In the small picture, your day, the hours. In the big picture, this might apply to, bigger relationships. And, do you, for example, spend a lot of time with a person that just sucks the energy out of you because they're really not a good, they don't contribute anything to your life. They don't help you and encourage you. They actually just take a lot from you, and it's one-sided. That's a conversation. I think I probably need to do an episode, because there are a lot of people who are stuck in those kinds of relationships that don't know that they're allowed to get out. But how do you spend your time? Do you spend your time doing stuff that then leads you feeling drained, or then leads you feeling bad or guilty? Or do you spend your time doing things or managing your life in a way where you feel accomplished, you feel proud of yourself, you feel good about your relationships, but you're also realistic that some days you're just more on point than others. Some days you're a rock star and you get everything done. Other days you're just barely making it and surviving because it's just a tough day. And if you can accept that you're probably going to have a mix of both, you're going to have days where you're great, you're going to have days where it's just a hot mess, then you're more realistic, you're more fair to yourself, and you're setting a better example if you have children or anyone that looks up to you, or anyone who relies on you is going to see, like, okay, I need to be fair to myself. I need to follow, the advice of, you can't win them all. Do your best, try your hardest, but if things don't work out, try again, change it up, do something different, or just do the same thing and just keep trying until it works, whatever. So all of that, I'm going to wrap up with, if you feel bad, you may have to work backwards, figure out what it is, and I want you to know that this is something you can take control of today. Even if it's at the end of your day and you have a couple things you still needed to get done, write them down, keep a list, figure out a system that works for you. I'm a big fan of writing things down, because I don't know about you, but I've got so many thoughts and things going through my mind all the time. It would be really unfair of me to expect my mind to keep track of all of it. I pride myself on having a decent memory. It's not a great one, but it's decent. But it's not as good as it used to be, because I'm older and I do more things and I'm responsible for more things. And there are a lot of people that struggle with the fact that they need to write things down even when they're in their 30s or 40s. Well, it's not because you're getting old. It's because you have more on your plate, and you just have to figure out how to make it work instead of fighting the fact that you have to write it down. Just get over it, write it down, be more successful so you're not forgetting the things you need to do, get organized, and then you will be able to take more control instead of hoping you figure it out and just get better at being organized on your own. It's not going to happen. So I hope this gives you something to think about, some way to take control of your self-esteem, self-worth, and just kind of overall mental health. All right, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.